100. And we're underway as they scream down into the first turn, starting actually over on the back straightaway. And Al Unser Jr., the pole sitter here, forges ahead to the lead. The Penske cars, first, second, and third as they qualified. The rest of the field flows through. I'm Paul Page with Sam Posey and Bobby Unser. In the pits will be Jack Arute and Gary Gerald today as we have a nice long afternoon here at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course ahead. Qualifying yesterday was all but rained out. Qualifying times were taken from the run on Friday, and as a result, Al Unser Jr. took the pole, but as you can see, Paul Tracy snatched the pole away from him as they come to the first complete lap of competition.
Tracy was sick on both Friday and Saturday. He told me this morning he felt much better. Obviously, it's showing in his performance.
So Paul Tracy now leads his teammate Al Unser Jr. as they've completed what is scoring at the first lap, starting over on the long straight, coming out of the keyhole here. This course is 2.25 miles around, 13 turns.
And also keep in mind, Paul and Sam, that qualification with Penske cars, 1, 2, 3. Little Al, Paul Tracy, and Emerson Fittipaldi in theirs.
Parker Johnstone, as he slides, he's one of the 3 Honda entries here, and he's off the course, and looks like some damage may have occurred to the left front on that car.
He's definitely bent up a little bit, but just think how nice the tires. That could have been a really bad accident, whereas it turns out to be relatively minor because of the tires, the way they put them all together.
Emerson Fittipaldi currently runs in third. The officials in IndyCar have been concerned about sending out vehicles to get those cars off the course if they are in harm's way. And so as a result, they're going to be very careful today. And if they have to put a vehicle on the course any length of time at all, they will go towards yellow. Parker Johnstone, they're still trying to get that car off. You rode for a moment with Nigel Mansell.
Yes, and you know, he may not be bent as bad as it looks there. At least he may be able to get back to the pits to do a repair job in the pits. Looks like all they have to do is get it running.
Other car, that's Dominic Dobson, who took an excursion off the course, but he's back underway as well.
He's had incident after incident, several crashes this year, but it was bailed out by a brilliant third 2 weeks ago in the Michigan 500.
A lot of mud on that right front tire he'll have to wear away. There is the leader of the race, Paul Tracy. Fastest Lola to qualify was Nigel Mansell by nearly a full second ahead of any other Lola in the field, so he's very definitely one to watch.
Remember, it was Paul Tracy who was running away with this race at the same point last year. He led the first 22 laps, had one of his unfortunately characteristic brain fades, went off the road and out of the race. Here today, he looks like he's got clean control again.
And you can see, Sam, that Mid-Ohio is such a nice racetrack. Up and down, a little bit hilly, wide, really smooth. Probably the nicest road course that the Indy cars run on.
Built back in 1962, it was really a second-generation road course in the United States after Riverside, Lime Rock, Sebring. They really learned a lot and built a beauty here, and it's been much refined since then, particularly for the spectators. A great family place.
So now the 3 laps in competition are complete. Paul Tracy is the leader, followed by Little Al, then Emerson Fittipaldi. In 4th place is Nigel Mansell, the number 1 car. You see him there. Mauricio Gugelmin, who expects a good day, currently runs in 5th place. In 6th is Michael Andretti, then Robbie Gordon, Bobby Rahal, Jacques Villeneuve, and Jimmy Vasser rounds out the top 10.
Mansell, of course, winless this year after 2 of the greatest seasons, certainly back-to-back, any racing driver in history has ever enjoyed.
Jacques Villeneuve, as he tries to challenge the Honda power in Bobby Rahal's car.
Interesting matchup and experience. Rahal, of course, lives near here, has practiced as much on this track as any man alive. Villeneuve is a rookie here. He's never driven here before. His injuries at Michigan prevented him from practicing earlier in the week, so he is having his first race here ever.
And Villeneuve's in the blue car. Rahal right there in the black and gold car. Rahal has got the Honda engine, for the folks that don't know, and they've been having a lot of problems with it. They're making more horsepower, but it doesn't seem to have much longevity to it. About 175 miles, the engines blow up, and this has really been bothering Bobby Rahal. Going pretty fast now, but does he have enough to get to the end?
On board with Bobby Rahal, just ahead of him, Robbie Gordon. Let's just ride and watch him. Listen to those gear changes.
You can also hear a different sound to Rahal's car. This also gives you an idea how nice the turns and how smooth the track is here, Paul.
Yeah, but boy, you've really got your handful driving this part where you come over that rise and then immediately have to cock it over here. It's almost impossible to see ahead of you very well. Notice here, you're really only looking 100, 150 yards ahead of the car.
You can see that there is some blue sky overhead. There was a very heavy rain came through the area yesterday and then again last night. But the best indication is that this race will run in the clear. And in fact, the blue sky you're looking at to the west there should indicate that we should have a perfect afternoon. The yellow flag is out for Willie T. Ribbs, who pulled off the edge of the course. There you see him. And he's in a fairly precarious position, so the question will be whether or not they'll go full course yellow around the course while they get Willie T. Ribbs restarted. Right now, we're keeping the green flag at the start-finish line and a local yellow only to cover Willie's car.
Yeah, one of the nicest things about this track means they have so much grass and it's really so wide, they can send an emergency vehicle out, grab a car, pull them back, and they can really run on the grass if they have to. Makes it a lot nicer here than like the street courses.
There is Paul Tracy's margin after 5 laps here, so he's pulling away from his teammate Al Unser Jr.
A word on Paul Tracy's technique. It's really fascinating. Lap after lap, when he comes through a turn, he accelerates out of it in exactly the same spot, whether his car is pointed right or not. If it's pointed a little wide of the turn, he wrestles it back onto the track. If it's pointed in a little bit, he lets it slide out. But he always opens the throttle at exactly the same point. That's quite different from some of the other drivers.
IndyCar safety vehicle is already there to help Willie T. Ribbs. Now, remember, if they can't get him rolling and under power immediately, then they will consider a full course yellow. So now 6 laps of 83 complete. Paul Tracy picked the lead away from his teammate, pole sitter Al Unser Jr.
Draft 200, brought to you by Cold Filtered Miller Genuine Draft. Get out of the old, get into the cold. Haviland Formula 3 Motor Oil, add more life to your car. American Honda, who's been making quality automobiles in America for the past 11 years. And AC Delco Automotive Parts. AC Delco, it's like buying time.
Back in the Miller Genuine Draft 200 at Mid-Ohio. There is the interval back from the leader of the race, Paul Tracy. He jumped on the green flag, got a good start, and pulled the lead away from his teammate Al Unser Jr. The battle on the course right now is for 5th place. It's between this car, the 88 car, Mauricio Gugelmin, and Michael Andretti. You ride on board with Michael now. That's Gugelmin just ahead down the long straight and winding downhill on some of the elevation changes that makes this track have so much character and is so popular with the drivers.
Gugelmin, of course, made his debut in IndyCar racing in this race last year. Interestingly, they both drive Renard cars. Theoretically, Michael Andretti, the lead driver for the Menard pairing, going for Chip Ganassi, but he's trailing his teammate right now.
That's been happening pretty much all year long. On most cases, Gugelmin has been faster than Michael, and both owned by the same people, but operate as 2 different teams, so one has to wonder sometimes, does Gugelmin have better mechanics than Michael does?
Well, but Michael's been the one that's been able to win the races, 2 of them so far, and he's 3rd in the championship.
Oh, several cars off.
Mike Groff.
That's Mike Groff and Scott Goodyear, the winner of the Michigan 500 as well, and they have dug in deeply into the sand trap that is designed to slow them down when they come off. They were in a battle for 12th. Just behind Adrian Fernandez. Now here it is again. You see Fernandez has already come through. Groff and Goodyear into the corner.
And Goodyear's in there too deep. He's trying not to hit Groff. He hits him, raised Groff's rear end, clear off the ground, drove underneath him. Of course, spun both cars out and the sand trap. Look at this. It does exactly what it was intended to do. It just stops the cars without any damage. Now, as soon as they get these cars running, other than their contact, they'll be okay.
Mario Andretti and Teo Fabi both had an anxious moment just behind this situation. Corner workers, and by the way, many of the corner workers here, as with most of the road courses, are volunteers who take a week off to come out and help. They're going to try to get those cars prepared so when the IndyCar safety team comes around, they can pull them out. That, of course, was Mike Groff's crew as they're discussing the situation. They're receiving full radio coverage, play-by-play, coming from Mike Groff in the cockpit.
That's what often happens when you get into a turn that's just too deep. You get in, you can't stop. There's somebody in front blocking you. You can't do anything but just hit them.
Mauricio Gugelmin now closes on Nigel Mansell, being pushed by Michael Andretti. So they've closed in and made this a battle for 4th place.
This is a terrific race, and remember, all 3 of these men have extensive Formula One experience. Nigel Mansell on the left of your screen in the black and white car, of course, world champion. Gugelmin, a veteran of 6 or 7 Formula One seasons, and Michael Andretti bringing up the rear, of course, had that season last year for McLaren.
Mansell in the best qualified Lola, being challenged now by 2 Renards. Remember, in terms of winning 2, that Michael Andretti scored back-to-back wins here in 1990 and 91.
This is the first year that Renard has come to the Indianapolis car racing scene. And you look at the number 88, and of course right behind Michael Andretti, those are both Renards. The first year for them, they've been developing all year, and they are getting better.
Well, they came out of the box pretty good. Michael Andretti scored the win at the very first race of the season at Surfers Paradise, Australia.
And if you look back beyond this dueling trio here, Robbie Gordon is going to start to get in the picture. He's overcome problems he had earlier in the race, and we're going to start to see him join them. This is terrific racing.
Yeah, Robbie started the race on new brake pads and didn't have a chance to bed them in. So as his brakes get more efficient, he should close this battle too.
As we ride with Michael, listen to his throttle opening. He goes from the throttle all the way close to wide open and then back to close as he hustles it through the turn. He's very, very aggressive with this car.
Paul Tracy remains the leader, then Al Unser Jr., then Emerson Fittipaldi, first, second, and third. Neither of those challenging one another. This is the highest, best battle on the race course. Now you're on board with Robbie Gordon.
Now I just started to say, Paul, he's working right up on that bunch. It's going to be a 4-car race here in just a minute, because Robbie is really going to cause the other guys to have to drive harder. Mansell is going to be the recipient of all of this, because he's got, look at all the guys behind him.
As we said earlier, covering in the pits is Gary Gerald and Jack Arute. Jack has an update on Gordon.
Well, Paul, it hasn't been a great weekend for Robbie Gordon and his Valvoline team. In fact, he said until this last practice session before the start of the race, they were, to quote Robbie, out to lunch. They made some changes, though, and they seem to have worked well. He radioed in just a couple of laps ago to Derek Walker that the brake pads are actually seated in, and now he feels like all he wants to have in that first pit stop, which we should see about lap 23, take a little bit of front wing out, and he says we can go and try and race to the front.
12 laps are now complete as we take a look at the Ford Electronics telemetry coming off Robbie Gordon's car. And we'll just ride here for a couple minutes as he continues to chase down Michael Andretti, Mauricio Gugelmin,